Thank you for joining us. This is another podcast for Debunking Girl Math. So this is an interesting podcast. This is student-led. I'm your professor of economics here at Norco College. My name is Tamara Cummings, and this podcast has been funded by the RCCD Foundation of the district. We're glad to be here where we're talking about this social media phenomenon that deals with girl math. And so this came about, one, by a phenomenal student, Cole, who was sitting to my right, but also based on conversations that we had in class where during robust conversations on topics of economics, students brought out this idea that there is misinformation or a different angle to an issue that we talked about in class in economics that did not resemble the theories of economics that we talked about in class. So that was then the start of this idea that we should have a student conversation, which led to a podcast and funding by RCTG Foundation to have a conversation about girl math concepts that dominate social media. In addition, this podcast has been made possible in partnership with the Emoji program here at Norfolk College. I'm glad to be here. This is yet another episode. We're going to have robust and various conversation. And I'd like to introduce here my co-host, One Cole.
Yes, again, I am Cole. Thank you guys so much for listening and tuning in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diane Castillo, and I'm here to join this beautiful panel.
Hi, Janice. My name's Anna Macias, and I'm back for episode of Debunking Girl Math.
And the voice.
And my voice.
As the voice, we've had that vigorous and robust conversation, all right, that we're losing our voices, but we will continue this podcast series. We're having a really good time with it. Today, we want to talk about a number of different things that all of us have engaged in. One is going to be subscriptions and reward points, and then we're also going to have a subsequent conversation on spending and empowerment. So if you don't hear what's of interest to you today, tune in again tomorrow, and you'll hear probably something of interest to you, either led by social media or a concept that we've discussed in another episode here. So I hope you follow all of our podcasts. I hope you follow all of the conversations and continue to join and even ask questions. We'd love to hear your questions. So let's get started. So has anyone here ever bought an item that you didn't need and you decided it's worth returning? And how did you feel about that particular return, and what did you do with the funds related to that particular return? Anyone want to take a stab at that question?
Yeah, I could take a stab at it. I've returned many different things. I think clothing items is one of them. Either they didn't fit on me properly, so I returned it, and I got. They usually will say, "Oh, do you want in-store credit or we'll just give you the cash back." I say in-store credit. Let me take a look around at what you have, and then I see something that I like, and I could get a trade-in for it. And I ended up thinking, oh well, I basically just got a free thing because I just traded it in.
That's it? It's free because you traded it in? But what about your spending a month earlier? That doesn't count?
It's not that it doesn't count, it just doesn't feel like it counts sometimes.
Explain that. Say a little bit more. It doesn't feel like it counts because...
I would say because it's almost like it's in the past. Like you don't really remember that purchase almost.
That makes perfect sense. You've already spent the money. Mm-hmm. At one point in time, today you did not pull money out of your pocket. But you got something in exchange, even though you didn't swipe your card or you didn't pull money out of your pocket. So in essence, that item feels free. I'm curious to know, does anyone feel like it's actually free? Diana?
Yeah, thank you for this question. So, definitely not free, but it does have a different effect when you do return an item that you've already purchased, say, a month or 60 days prior, because the financial burden was in place in that moment. And so that's why then, the necessity to need their funds returned is not as important or as necessary for us. So I think that's not free, but it is a lot more rewarding when you get to send something for yourself that you purchased for someone else who is not necessarily needed anymore.
I love that. So in essence, we're trying to justify our spending.
Yeah.
And And it's an emotional reaction, right, to forking out money that once upon a time was important, but now the item, it becomes more important. So I think there's tremendous value in understanding the power of emotional consumption, which is really what we're talking about, the consumer side of the market, not so much the supply side of the market. And if you've done any classes in economics, you know very well that we always talk about supply and demand. Let's kind of take another angle at this buying thing, right? Why we continue to buy, or why do we spend emotionally towards things that perhaps we need and perhaps we don't need, right? So let's think about rewards. Has anyone ever bought something just to get the reward points? And then what do you think about those reward points after you've earned them?
I'm guilty. I've opened up a poor credit card to get those VIB beauty points. I've done it all. And I don't ever cash in those points. I don't ever bill it to get money. No, I don't. They until my free gift food purchase. It's just the illusion, I feel like, for me. And it's bad.
So if it feels good to have the points kind of banked, but then you don't use your bankable points?
I think it's just I forget and then they expire. Then what am I left to do?
They do expire. And Matt, I wonder if money expires. If we were to apply that same concept to money, does our money expire or simply the rewards points expire? But let's go back to the rewards. Anyone ever, by chance, buy a coffee for which you earn reward points, and then you buy the more expensive coffee because you want to earn more reward points, and then you say to yourself, I'm going to afford this many points to go back for my birthday or when I'm traveling? And how do we feel about that particular level of spending? Is it justified spending, or is it spending because you are now being enticed to engage in a behavior that you really did thankfully?
At least for myself and a personal sense, I do the Starbucks just and simply because even though I like the coffee bean or any other specialty coffee shop, but I prefer to go into Starbucks because of the reward point system. And so if I spend $5, I know that there's going to be double the points for that. So yeah, that is a great mechanism for me to know that I'll have some points at the end of the month or even towards next month to be able to redeem those. So I think it's a great way to just keep people in a cycle. And as expect something but probably forget about it, and then you're gonna lose your reward.
So the only place you can spend that money is at that place where you earn the rewards.
Yeah, unless you get a Starbucks credit card, because they also have that, and then you're able to do yes.
With both active surprise.
I don't have that because I know how to budget myself, but
Interesting.
my knowledge will do.
Interesting. Has anyone ever said, let me spend this additional $10 so I can get a $10 reward or a $50 reward at some point? Yeah, you get to the cash register and all this says, the cashier tells you very nicely, we're running a promo today, and if you spend an additional $10, you will earn $10 in credits, or you will earn $50 in credit. What is your instinct at that moment? What do you do when you're at the register?
It's definitely very tempting to buy that extra $10 item because you can get essentially what it feels like. It always feels like, oh, I could get a free extra $10 if I just buy this $10 item. But in reality, it's like, oh, I just spent $10 on an item I didn't even need just to get that $10. Like, they still drop, yeah, plus tax also.
So do you do it? Do you rationalize this, or do you actually just buy the thing and earn your reward?
So for me, it depends if it's someone's birthday that I'm shopping.
You justified it. Okay.
If I go into it with the intention of already shopping for someone, then I'll spend that extra 10 and get the reward. But if I don't, or if I just need one or two things, then I'm not going to spend any, then I will say no.
I like that idea of doing it for gift-giving purposes, right? So for example, if you're shopping for the holidays or you're shopping for birthdays, let's say you have 2 or 3 birthdays coming up, and all of a sudden, like you mentioned, you have the gift basket that you were mentioning, or you're getting a free item, right? So kind of spreading out your purchases so that you're dividing it. Even though you're buying one thing, you're actually ending up having 3 or 4 items that you can gift to different people, even though you only needed one gift at that particular moment. So I understand for sure why we do it. We always ask ourselves, is that the right thing to do? Should we be doing it? And oh, by the way, if I didn't have money, why am I doing it again? Illusion. The illusion, right? Do we think about the income that we have or that we're earning when we're making those purchases? Or do we see them as completely separate things in life, right? Earning the income has nothing to do with my spending power. Because there is this thing called credit. So I do wonder. Any thoughts about that?
With line of credit, or let's say, what? So credit cards is okay for me. And my perspective was like pushing credit and stuff. I have a negative perception on it because since I was 19, I worked retail cosmetics, and it's been a major point. If you open 4 credit cards, you get $10 as an employee, and then these people get cool lines of credits that they can use. So it's an incentive on both sides. I get $10 that I get to pocket from this company that I'm working for, which I feel like I already made that $10 from working there. They're just taking out of my taxes or whichever way they want to take my money. But I feel like they just like the me collect my thoughts.
Okay. Well, how do we connect maybe credit cards and spending with this extravagant kind of level of consumption that we see?
My assumption. I feel like consumption right now is really high, but it's also like a leisurely thing, right? Like I'm going to Starbucks for leisurely. I'm gonna pick up a cup of coffee. I'm gonna go to my Target run. I'm gonna go after that, take my son to Chuck E. Cheese or something. It's all a little consumption. I'm indulging in my Starbucks. I'm collecting my points. I feel like I'm being productive. I'm not going to work this day, but I'm spending this money, but I'm also getting back these rewards. And then I'm going to go to this establishment to collect my points, but also spend more money on that establishment. And then go to another establishment where I'm paying membership to collect my rewards there, but to also spend a little bit more money. And then go home and call it a day.
Yeah, and also going back to like the credit card thing, you don't need to pay that till the end of the month. So like, say if you wanted to buy something expensive, then you could buy it technically. Since if you don't have the funds right now, well, you could get that later. So it becomes, if you're not good at budgeting, you could run into debt really easily with this consumption.
Yeah. Like for credit cards specifically, sometimes they run 12 to 24% of interest. 29.29. Yeah, so let's just call that 30%. So even if you spend $300, you're already looking at your monthly bill of almost $80 to $89. So if you do that times 3 or 4 more months, you're paying all what you already paid, plus taxes or whatever else you spend. So I just think it's a great mechanism for us to think that we're not initially spending, but we're gonna spend more, just like mortgages, car loans, all of those implement the same system.
So I wonder if there's this barrier that's been built, and I don't think it's anything negative or anything super positive, but I wonder if we're thinking about it critically, has there been a barrier that has existed now between the money that we make and how we spend? So that we don't necessarily see how the money that we make, all right, let's say I earn $100 a day, and what I make is not connected to the $200 I spend every single day. Why? Because we have this thing called credit, our credit card, our reward points, our discounts, our clearance tag, etc. So we don't necessarily associate that I only produced $100 for myself and my family bank account today, but I am predisposed to spending $200 because someone messaged me that it's okay today to spend $200 because the $200 is actually discounted. Originally it was $300, but I've discounted it $100, and so I'm okay spending $100. And then I think, Cole, you made an excellent point, this thing about budgeting. I don't know about you guys, but where do we learn to budget? Who teaches us to budget? When does that even come into play? I really don't know. Any thoughts about it?
I truly think this starts in a house. So your house will typically, whether they raise you and they create the foundation for people to have either emotional spending which can lead to excess of consumption or be savers, right? And you can have scarcity or the anxiety of spending the money. And so I think it starts at home with the majority of households. And some people do not know how to budget. And therefore, I think as an adult, you learn those habits.
I think that's phenomenal that you brought up this idea of savings, because I only brought up this side of budgeting, implying how I spend my money. And Diane, you picked it right up and said, but savings. You added this notion of savings, which is, again, who teaches us how to save? Who teaches us when it's appropriate to save? Who teaches us how long we ought to be saving? Any thoughts about products that are out there that you guys think, wow, this really taught me? Or even a classroom where you thought, wow, I need to think about savings or retirement, or this notion of savings is not known in my house. Or how were you taught about savings that is completely separate from how we teach it, let's say, in the classroom?
I feel like that's a deep question. For me specifically, I am ashamed to say I learned about finances and stuff outside of my home and outside of high school.
There's no shame in it. It's what we've all dealt with,
Right? I went to college and there's some financing things that put me to shame, and we learn from it, we move on and we grow. But I think that the topic of learning to save and learning about income and learning about how to spend your income and how to budget, it should be, I think personally, it should be taught fully. And early education. It would be learned about quarters and stuff in like elementary school. We should learn about saving our quarters for a cookie or something.
I think also the change that came when online direct deposit and not having the monetary funds or a check to be received at the end of the week, and then being bi-weekly and then monthly, income, that also is sort of out of sight, out of mind. Yep, instance. And so that then created this shift of online ordering, all these other effects that also played into the bad habits of not understanding budget.
Yeah, for me, I think when it came to like learning budgeting, it became kind of like a sink or swim type of thing, to where I was starting to water to figure it out. Yeah. I kind of use bad credit card bills that are a little bit over what I could take. But yeah, you just kind of have to learn it in my household. Like, I've asked my parents about stuff before, but they never sat me down and be like, oh, here's how you budget, here's how you save, stuff like that.
And sometimes you just don't know how to budget until you're actually responsible for your spending or for certain bills or for monthly expenses, disassociated really from having to go spend it in a certain way or spending X amount. When I'm given $10 because I finished my chores, I'm going out to spend my $10. That has nothing to do with budgeting. So I think, to your point, having us sit down and having a conversation is not necessarily very practical. Sometimes actually throwing us in the deep end, oh, you spent it, therefore you must be able to pay for it, I think is a great way to learn. It's difficult, and sometimes it's hard to climb out of, but I think it's an important way to kind of learn, is because we're touching the amount of money that we're making compared with the amount of spending that we're generating as well. So fascinating stuff.
If I can add, absolutely. I taught my kids, my oldest is 13, 7, my middle is 7, and then 4. And whenever they receive money for birthdays, holidays, anything, I teach them the concept of 50, 30, 20, 10. And so that
50, 30, 20, 10. Yeah, take it away.
So 50% you save and you put it into a savings, college saver or whatever, specifically for them. And then the 30, you can spend it and want to buy her new shoes or whatever. And then 20, you can spend it on goods. And then 10, you can save for, like, say they want on Fridays, they have basketball. So if you want to spend it on snacks or whatever, so that concept, that way they can compartmentalize different spending patterns for themselves when they get older.
I like that idea. I actually wrote it down. I might use it. Here, 50, 30, 20, 10. I like that idea. It's something different that I've done as well. Is over time, I used to buy everything in bulk. I used to overbuy, especially for food, for our pantry. And so over time, as money kind of shrinks, well, does money shrink, or do I just have less money to spend? I just have less money to spend. Let me put it that way. Is I'll go to the grocery store and only buy what can fit into a handbasket. So I don't use the part, I just use the basket. And once that basket is full or my arm can no longer hold it up, I've got to get out of there, or I have to reconstruct the items that I put in that basket. And that reminds me to stop thinking about the money that I have in hand, but also what is it that I actually came for and what do I need, right? And that's to prevent myself from doing lots of shopping when I'm super hungry or lots of shopping when I just don't have the money. So I think that's another way outside of the 5, 50, 30, 20, 10 to think about how do we become in control once again of how we spend, the way we feel about spending, and what we enjoy when we do spend. There's actually a feeling of reward that comes along when we do spend. So any other thoughts, any concluding thoughts about spending, consumerism? Is it a problem that we need to solve, or is it simply a conversation that we need to have and be honest about what we're doing and how we feel about it?
I think it's something that we need to talk about a little bit more when it comes to consumerism. It's been bad, especially with things like fast fashion and stuff like that, where we're just keep on buying and buying new things. A few stores have the buy from bulk, like from China and stuff like that. You get these things for really cheap, and we just keep on buying more and more stuff that we don't really eat.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think as consumers, we do have to understand that the supplier is not gonna stop selling. They're gonna stop, giving you these rewards or these incentives for us to purchase because they want to spend money. And as a consumer, as for personal, I think we should definitely be aware of how much money or how much income we receive. That way we can then understand budget and understand savings and understand future goals and expectations that we have. I think, yeah.
I agree with you both. And to piggyback after that, I feel like, especially with fast fashion nowadays, everything's kind of like polyester and acrylic. We're not only noticing a shift in like how our purchasing patterns are changing, but also like the shrinkflation of it all and like the quality of everything kind of going down. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't go into a place and I can't buy the 100% cotton shirt anymore. It's like 90% cotton, 10% polyester.
Or looking for the vintage and not me. So, and I think that's a conversation needs to be had for sure on like the consumption and sustainability or what all.
I love that. I think those are great topics for us to have a follow-on conversation, a follow-on podcast, an episode where we talk about a little bit more about the 50, 30, 20, 10, where we talk about sustainability, right? Consumerism that is sustainable, where we talk about shrinkflation. I think that's another concept that was brought up. I love this idea of budgeting versus saving, which has been brought up by my co-host. So I hope you'll join us once more for another episode on debunking girl math, but we talk about here at Norco College, hopefully through the economics club one day, but also thanks to the RCCD Foundation, which has made this project possible. Thank you so much.